me and Bret were really close, you know, out of the ring, you know.
Okay.
I always, like, Bret always carried himself, conducted himself, like when he was the champion. I mean, he conducted himself in that manner. There was no doubt that he was not the world champion. We had a lot of good times together, like overseas and places like that. But one of the greatest things about working with Bret for me, because in the 90s, everything was about the character. It was always setting that character and building that character. And Bret was a, wrestling. He was a wrestling purist, right? And he wasn't real gimmicky. In fact, when he talks about me, it's funny because he always calls me like doing the Frankenstein character, right? Don't worry, Bret. You didn't hurt my feelings.
Never got under your skin.
It never got under my skin one bit. But that's his analogy of that character. It's Frankenstein. I understand the analogy. But when I got to work, when I got the chance to start working with Bret, and it's kind of, I think it started in Europe working over there. Mm-hmm. It allowed me, well, it didn't allow me, because he was the champion and I loved the way he worked, his style and everything. Like I had the character down, right? And I was like, man, I want to be more. I want to be known more than just this character. And Bret, he worked as much as he could within himself to get the character over. But Bret had wrestling matches.
Yeah.
So it allowed me that opportunity, which I wanted, to be able to showcase the fact that I could work. Yeah, I can do this character and I can make you believe this character, but I also wanted to be known as a worker. Like I wanted my name. I didn't want to be known, oh man, that was one of the greatest characters ever. I also wanted to be known as one of the great workers. And Bret, working with him allowed me to do that because his work was solid, and he was only going to go so far within the range of the gimmick and everything.
Yeah.
And I like that because it forced me to figure out how to have good wrestling matches and be in character too. And once we figured it out and we got a formula of kind of the things that work with us and the things that didn't work with us, man, we had some really killer matches leading up to that match. But there was a match that we had in the UK. Now, at this time, Bret is a heel in the States, but everywhere else, Bret's still Bret Hart, and he's a babyface. So we go, oh, man, it was either Manchester or Birmingham, and I wish I could remember, but I don't remember exactly which. It's one of those two cities we have this match. And man, now this is a non-televised match, so it even gives me a little bit more liberty to work and stretch that character. But I think we went 45 minutes in a house show. And we took this crowd on a ride that you would not believe. It was one of those situations where, like, 1 minute it's let's go Taker, and then the next minute it's let's go Bret. And then there's one half of the building yelling Undertaker, and then the other half of the building is yelling Bret Hart back and forth. It was just an emotional roller coaster that we took the audience on, and man, did we have it was one of my best matches, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
And this was a house show.
And it's just a house show. And we had just, like I said, I guarantee we went 45 minutes if we went 10. It was just, and we were in a flow, and we had each other's timing, and we thought alike. We thought a lot alike as far as It was fun. And then we get to, we get to the SummerSlam match, and by then we're dialed in.
How long had y'all been working together? I mean, probably off and on a good bit, but I mean, like, how long? I mean, how long do you think it took for y'all to sync up? Because I think of Bret Hart, and I just think of this tactician inside the ring, right? And now you've got early on, especially with you, just this character that's no selling a lot and everything else, and it's like I felt like you probably stretched Bret just as much as he stretched you when it came to, Bret now has to figure out. I watched a match that y'all had Madison Square Garden in '92, where it was like he would do things and you were, you'd fall out and you would just sit right back up immediately.
Oh, in '92, yeah.
There was a moment where he's climbing up to the top ropes, and he did something that I thought was just perfect for who he is. He did something just absolutely perfect. He gets up to the top rope and he turns back, and you have now set up, and he just sits on the top rope and just drops his head. And it's like, that is so good right there. That moment and you took your time as well, of you sit up and you just kind of look over, and he gets to the top rope. He thinks he's got you finally.
Right.
And he turns around and sees you, and the frustration, and he's like, oh, and he goes to start climbing to the top of the
I remember that. I remember that. That's just storytelling. That is what at the essence of what we do. That is just great storytelling, and to see, because that's not how Bret worked, but Bret was smart enough in the moment to show the frustration of, like, what do I have to do?
The man of 1,000 moves or whatever.
Right.
It was,
what do I have to do to keep this monster down? And it's such a simple thing, though, when you think about it, but how much it meant and how much it stuck out to you.
Yeah.
And that's the key, and that's one of the key elements to being a great storyteller. It's not the moves that you do. The moves are cool and they're vital to the match, but it's those in-between transitions that make everything tie together and makes the story. And you could feel Bret's frustration.
He was so frustrated because he's done everything to you.
He's worked
with everyone else that he's wrestled. Everyone else that he's wrestled, they're done. They're not getting up, and you just kept getting up. And it was, instead of him just running over kicking you, it was, Jesus, why? What's up with this guy?
Right.
Why can't, what is the next move that I can do to even do anything? How can I even do anything to this man? That Madison Square Garden in '92 is just, to me, it was a phenomenal match on both ends, because you were a no-selling SOB at that time.
Oh,
right?
yeah. No, yeah. 92, I didn't sell anything.
And you're in there with, pound for pound, the greatest wrestler of all time. And and he is so frustrated. But I think that stretched Bret, though, as much as it was, especially in '92. I mean, you're still early in that character.
Right.
And you're developing that character. And he is Bret Hart in '92, but he had to dig into a different part of his toolbox as well, I think, which is.
And I think that's cool, and I think that's one of the interesting elements of matchmaking and good storytelling is making people sometimes making them get out of their comfort zone and doing things a different way, just to show how important a match is, what it's going to take to win. Because you see, a lot of times when you watch matches, you'll see the same thing over and over and over, the same moveset, the same deal, the same thing. But when, like you said, things that you've seen him drop people with and keep them down, now it's not working. Now you feel the struggle. Like, wow, whether you're an Undertaker fan or you're a Bret Hart fan, like, dude, what is Bret going to have to do to keep Undertaker down? And then when he does that, when he shows you the frustration that you're thinking, this is like, man, that's magic. That is the magic of what it is we do, and it's core. And that was in '92. So by the time we get to '97, I mean, we've had several matches, and now we've figured it out. And I remember one of the great things that he did with me he would do the figure 4 on the post, and then fall back, which was one of those things that allowed me not to. I would have sold it differently as the American Badass, but even as the Undertaker, it allowed me to show a little bit of pain and show that I'm in trouble, and it showed the desperation that Bret was in to figure out however he was going to keep me down. Bret was really, really creative as far as putting matches together, and we had this. Normally in that situation, Bret would have led that match. He was tenured more so than me.
Yeah.
But we really had a really good chemistry and a camaraderie that it was always kind of like, okay, for me, it's like, what can I do for you? Within the confines of what I do, what can I do for you that's going to showcase your talents and your deal? And he was the same, he was the same thing with me. He was like, okay, you're Frankenstein. How does mortal Bret Hart drop Frankenstein kind of deal? And so it was we always worked hard for each other.
Yeah.
And then by the time, again, once we got to that SummerSlam, it was like we had it dialed in.